So let's talk half a season, Mike. Let's talk the mid-season grades. I don't want to go too in-depth on this because I just will ask everybody to check it out on bodpodcast.com/Red Wings Rant. It is our first ever mid-season grades. And I think last year, Mike, we did a bad job. We just talked about somebody else's mid-season grades. So I said we should probably do it ourselves because we are a blog and podcast network technically. So here we are. Mike, anything you said you read it this morning. You let me know there's a ton of typos. So anybody listening to this, by the time you're listening to this Monday morning, I'm gonna give this the old workaround, and there'll be a mid-season grade 2.0. It's just I do apologize for anybody that went in and read it because one person got a baby and I got a pregnant wife at home, so it kind of just turns into it's just the day escapes you quicker than it ever has. But Mike, like I said, anything pop out to you as you scroll through these mid-season grades, or big surprises, things that you think I should retool?
Well, if there's two things I like, it's articles about trades and free agency. The other thing is reading grades. Give me grades. I want to know letter grades for my players. So I've read quite a few of these articles, and some of the national folks have really been generous with the grades, giving out quite a few B pluses and Bs with these players. And I feel like you and I probably our scores would be aligned a little bit more. Not necessarily critical, but it's just like, how can you give a passing grade when this is another not quite as historically bad as last season, but still pretty rough. Bobby Ryan should obviously be at the top for the forwards. Larkin for his efforts. The one spot where contextually, if you're going to combine statistics, contribution to the team, and then again that context of what's going on around you, it kind of feels like Bernier's grade was a little low. Anything below an A++ for that guy at this point. Not just as a few of the Red Wings have been making mention that our best player's been Bernier. It's so obvious, watching game by game. The rebounds this guy limits, the shots that he sees and saves. Even in that Lightning game, he gave up 4 games in that last one we had, 4 goals, but it still felt like it should have been 9 or 10 because that team is so talented. And there was quite a few opportunities where you were just like, your eyes were bugging out of your head. Like, wow, we really had 4 guys looking at the puck and nobody paying attention to the guys on the other side of the ice for poor Bernier, leaving him out to dry. So I just mean, knowing that he's kind of had, we'll use the word adventure. Well, he had an adventure as far as defensively, what's going on in front of him. We've seen a mortal man, and I'm talking about you, Thomas Greiss, try to put up solid numbers. We've seen great men fall from grace, right? We've seen Jimmy Howard fall from grace. He had to retire because of the defenseman in front of him. We've seen Thomas Greiss, who's statistically the whiskey man himself, who's just been getting better with age, suddenly plays behind the Red Wing defense, and his career looks like it's over. And then you look at Bernier, who, with the exact same cast of characters in front of him, is still putting out an outstanding performance, and is a guy that other teams would want to trade for, to lean on to win playoff games. So, I mean, watching the Red Wing team essentially put 2 goalies on the retirement list, Matt, it's an incredible feat. And Bernier saying, "Not me." I think that for sure is worthy of an A+. Matt, you're back. You're repost, if you will.
I think, to your point, like with how many bad things are around them, I think we forget to take a look at how he compares across the rest of the league. Obviously, that 9-10 save percentage isn't going to win anybody a Stanley Cup, and the 3.02 goals against, which is went up a little bit, which those aren't the important numbers, but neither one of those are going to get you a Vezina. But what I took a look at was the actual, it's the goals saved above expected, and I actually called it something different. But I did it per 60, right? So I'm measuring. I lost Mike there, but while I'm making my point, and hopefully Mike returns, we're taking a look from March 11th. He sat at 29th place in the league. There's Mike. I can bring him back in. See, it was Mike. Mike got kicked. It was Mike's internet. I knew it. So he sits at 29th in the league of goals saved above expected on March 11th. Obviously, that came up a little bit in that Tampa Bay game. And that's measuring like what the expected goals should be and what he's actually given up. So that does take into consideration the bad defense in front of him. So when you're at that point, like I totally get, like, no analytic, no statistic is perfect. And Jonathan Bernier is having an amazing season for how bad this team is. But I still am, if I'm going to take the hard analytics and judge everyone else on it, I've got to do it to Bernier. So he's having a great season. And a B- does not mean he's having a bad season. It's just he's having he's doing pretty good. Like, if the deep analytics made the judgment call, like if the one stat that we use that we think is doing a good job of defining who the best goaltenders in the league are, and Mike, if you take a look at that statistic, number 1 and 2 are Marc-Andre Fleury and Andrei Vasilevsky, who everybody right now is in agreement are the top 2 goaltenders in the league. So if Bernier's in the middle, he gets a B. Or a B-. So it's just one of those things where he does stand out on this team. As you can see, even the grades, he's of the top 5 players graded on this team. But I think I just wanted to be as honest as possible. I think it would just be too much eyeball test if I just said A+. And that's where I want to make sure everybody's graded the same. Boom.
Gotcha.
Roasted. No. I know you missed half of the explanation, but that's everybody. I mean, you could see where my argument is on bodpodcast.com. So anybody who wants to take a look, that's where it is. And I threw out there too, like in the final statement, like I got tired of trying to find an analytic. Is basically what I was saying. I got tired of trying to find an analytic that said Bernier is having an amazing season, and I just said, you know what, I'm just going to sit here and enjoy that he is the thing, like the shining light between the 2 goaltenders, anything on our defensive side. He is doing an amazing job, and I'm not taking anything away, but we just have to take a look at as you put it, the deep cut analytics. Go for it.
Yeah, the other, I'll just do, I guess a forward and a defenseman too. Just, really want to talk about, Bobby Ryan. I think that was probably the most on the nose score. He just comes in, he's making $1 million. Literally, he's making $1 million. And he's, been our best point producer. So he should obviously be recognized for that. He's probably going to get recognized when we see his name moved going across the feed on, NHL.com and ESPN.com that he's been traded to somebody who's going to use him in a playoff game. But yeah, his contributions, it's felt, his positive energy, even in the face of all this just animosity. And it's like, you wish that he was having this comeback story on a good team. So I kind of feel bad that he'd probably be talked about a little bit more in the national light if he was, playing on, a Canadian team, maybe, or a team that's actually got some wins. If he was like a third liner, a fourth liner in Tampa Bay, something like that, instead of being, the best Red Wing. Yeah. And if he's out for a game, like the whole offense just shuts down. And for a 33-year-old, that's pretty impressive for him to be our best goal scorer. But yeah, I understand if Yzerman's getting, we're going to give you a 2nd-round pick for an expiring deal. Additionally, if you tried to keep him. I got to think he's going to, say, look at this resume. This isn't a one-off comeback story. I'm ready to, be a presence in this league. That's why you could almost make the case, well, maybe we could ballpark. What kind of number are you talking about here in your age 34, 35, 36 season? Whether or not the Red Wings would, at least probably have to double that $1 million a year to keep him aboard, even as he goes into his mid-30s. So I think that's a kind of an interesting discussion because while the Red Wings, have been sitting on these, we talked about veterans at the end, kids who are still at the beginning. This would be a really interesting discussion, I think, for Yzerman to be like, do you want to be here to kind of help, mold these young minds? Because we can see what a positive influence your voices and your hockey skills are. This would, for me, be the hardest, one of the harder moves for Steve. Because I think you could get value, but I think there is value in keeping him around. Matt, give me a riposte on that.
What?
As far as the value of, trading him and you get a second or a third round pick, or you try to see what it would cost to re-sign him because, you can feel his presence on the ice and in the locker room.
Oh, you know what? It's funny as I had another thought in my head and then I was thinking how I wanted to throw that into what you were saying, but I guess this should answer it. I wanted to come back to Bobby Ryan at the beginning of the season saying he trusts Steve Yzerman. And I think when you and I first talked about that statement, I think it was about like Bobby getting put in the best situation possible by the end of the season. And that's something where if Bobby's on the trade block, Yzerman's not going to sit there and go, well, I'm not getting enough for this forward who's producing well. I think it's more about Yzerman's was probably promising, look, I'm going to move you and we're going to put you in a better situation by the end of this. This will just be an opportunity for you to shine and get noticed so you can head on over to a Stanley Cup contender. I guess point being, we'll know exactly what Bobby Ryan meant when he says, I trust Steve Yzerman once the trade deadline rolls past, right? Then we'll know what that all meant. If it means that he trusts Steve Yzerman to build a winner, then Bobby will still be here. And if it meant that Bobby knew Steve would do right by Bobby and his age and his career, we'll know that too. But those are probably the two options, right, that we're gonna be looking at, unless Bobby just we lose another 10 games and he says, I would retire. Like that's the third option, but I doubt that's gonna happen. But yeah, and now that what's funny is I'm sort of second guessing the Bernier grade because I focus so much on the financials for Bobby Ryan and so many other guys that I didn't really take that into consideration for the goaltenders.
Yeah,
and we're not really breaking the bank on a Bernier.
I mean, I think the last point for Bobby is like the likelihood of him getting traded is we know that the pandemic, besides, making it a real grind for the players, kind of juggling in and out of the lineup, having to get games canceled, things like that. The salary cap has had a hard time going up. So a lot of teams are right on the cusp of, being over, which, the NHL has the hard cap rule. So I think that financial reason is probably the strongest argument for Bobby to get moved. For teams that are on the cusp of either, being in that kind of bubble play-in, actually being a top seed for the playoffs. If you want to get a cheap, affordable acquisition and you have a team that all they care about is draft picks at this point, it could actually turn into a bidding war for Bobby Ryan. So I think that's probably a pretty interesting thing to keep track of here as we get closer to the deadline.
Yeah, and we were talking too before the show started, like if the Tampa Bay Lightning wanted to bring back Kucherov early, and that was something that was going around online, they'd have to make space for him. And that's right. Something where you get in a conversation with the Lightning and go, look, I've got a winger here that you can, you go 1-for-1, maybe a draft pick, and then you have the cheaper winger. We'll take on the higher salary because we've got the space. That that's something to keep in mind too. I keep throwing in draft picks, but I forget that with the Bobby Ryan contract being so low, it might just be something where you could trade serviceable guys. One's just getting maybe paid a little bit more, and the Red Wings will be able to take that contract on. And like I said, specifically with the Lightning, they might look to make some more space if they want to bring Kucherov back before the playoffs. All right, and I don't know. We're really going long here, but did you want to touch on a defenseman as well?
No, I just you wax poetically about Troy Stetcher, for good reason. We've talked about Steve bringing in defensive defensemen, and a lot of the times what that means is this guy's going to bring 0 to the table goal scoring wise. So sometimes you're a defensive defenseman because we're trying to justify you being on the team, but that's not the case here. This guy is. I'll let you touch on because you did a lot more of the research for Troy, but it eyeball test, it's there. It's such a positive impact. He's made Mark Stahl palatable at times, which I don't think we ever foresaw. He's made Stahl so palatable, Matt, that he could potentially be on the trading block. So Yzerman might get a draft pick to acquire him, and he might get another draft pick to get rid of him. So as far as Troy Stetcher's value is to this team, I think B+ is a little low, Matt. If he somehow turns Mark Stahl into multiple draft picks and multiple transactions, that might be an unprecedented move as we look at the history of a GM in this league. Troy Stetcher, like Yzerman owes that guy a contract extension and a steak dinner. So bravo to Stetcher, man.
Yeah, the main focus here was that he's doing pretty good at points per 60 for in regards to a defenseman, but he's doing so great from an expected goals against perspective. And I put it in there that he's 6th in the league among all defensemen in expected goals against. And I threw in there, the name Cal McCarr is who you can measure him. That should be the measuring stick, I think, right now for all defensemen in the league, especially like a well-rounded one. I think we see with Hughes over in Vancouver that defensive capabilities seem to be lapsing. Why does lapsing not feel like a word right now? I think I'm just too tired. All right. But yeah, that's where whatever Stetcher was bringing to the table offensively was like a cherry on top, because he would just stifle whatever was going out there. And you're right. Like, he also has to drag Mark Stahl around. And I threw out there, if you're looking at all defensive pairings, which there's 26 different defensive pairings, 10 of those pairings were on the positive side of expected goal percentage. So that's where the expected goals you're throwing or bringing to the ice and the expected goals that are going against you. He has the positive side of that. 4 of the 10 pairings, and again, 10 out of 26 are above 50%. He has 40% of those pairings, and those are all of the pairings that he's been a part of. And then I had to throw in there DeKeyser, Merrill, and Mark Stahl are how those have all lined up. And we've seen DeKeyser and Merrill struggle as well. And Mark Stahl has completely fallen off the map before Stetcher came back in the last game and scored our first goal of the game. So everything just seems to be, pointing in Stetcher's direction. And this is something for Red Wings fans. Like, we are looking for the Svechnikov things to get us excited. I think Stetcher's, it stinks, right? Because when Stetcher came in, the first part of the conversation was the expansion draft. And this is a guy you could expose and keep other Red Wing prospects safe. And I just, at this point, I'm exposing everyone else, and I want to keep Stetcher safe because he's doing such a great job. And when we picked him up as through the waiver wire, like, I remember seeing everybody's thoughts from, especially from Vancouver, were just like, no, like, this is something to them that was too exciting. And Yzerman made, again, another fantastic move. I challenge everyone to go check it out. Again, and by the time you're listening to this, all those typos will be gone. It's funny. I'm looking at just Stetcher's section right now, and I apologize again. I shouldn't be doing this because I should be upselling or like trying to sell the website, but I even spelled Stetcher's name wrong, like at the bottom here. So all of those, I promise, the editing, our lead editor will take a look, which is myself. So I'm gonna go through this 10,000 word document and fix it up here. But Mike, I think we've exhausted ourselves, including all of our discussion topics for today. Which again, as we like to throw out there, means that Scott Wheeler's prospect pool gets pushed back another week. So maybe we'll get to talk about it next week. Probably not. But yeah, everybody check us out. BODpodcast.com and brothersofdiscussion.com. There's the shop page right on the homepage. You just click the shop page down at the bottom. It'll get you to check out all these cool things like our Brothers of Discussion mug for anybody who's interested. And we've got our Red Wings Rant sweatshirts and t-shirts. You guys, yep, Mike's got the Red Wings Rant sweatshirt right there. Oh, I should blow that up.
Yeah. Oh,
well. Now it's just you, Mike. Oh no, I switched back.
Hey.
All right. Thanks. What? Oh, it just showing up. Okay. Sorry. Go to @BOD Hockey and brothers_of_discussion on Instagram. @BOD Hockey is Twitter. Man, I really feel tired right now. I'm barely remembering what our website is. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Sorry this is such a scramble at the end. Hope you enjoy it, and check out those mid-season grades on bodpodcast.com/Red Wings Rant. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.